All right, well, 1, 2, there it is, boom. 2 people were live. We just saw in the notes, man, this is your first 2 times?
First time live ever. What are we talking about today?
Right, today, dude, we're talking UV sterilizers, right? We're gonna go over all kinds of different stuff, man. But we're gonna make sure that at the end of this, man, you know more about UV sterilizers than ever before. There's experiments going on behind us where we're gonna talk about all this cool, I'm gonna call it Neptune Orange. So hopefully Terrence is around, he'll you know, get all excited about it because he hasn't actually seen this stuff yet.
It's pretty awesome.
All right, so we're gonna share, man, what a UV sterilizer actually does. I got some notes down here. What it does in a reef tank. We're gonna share the experiment that's going on behind us. And at the end, we're gonna give away $500 to a preferred reefer.
Really close to 500. He almost made 500, but it's like right at the cusp. But
Okay, yeah, just short of
absolutely.
it. Yeah, that means you're gonna have to wait to the end now. All right, so that's the end. All right, so along the way, man, let's make sure that everybody answer all the questions you might have about UV sterilizers because we'll answer it. And if you got anything like input too, I'm gonna ask Dave today. If you see people just throw in cool comments about their experience with the UV sterilizer, man, throw that in too, man, and we can read it off and talk about it. Not just questions, but also the value that the community adds to all this stuff. So. All right, man.
What do we know about? What do I know about UV sterilizers? It's probably about this much. Because I mean, all the research I was doing, setting up a new reef tank, and you hear all of this awesome gear and stuff, and then UV sterilizer pops up, and I'm like, all right, that's a cool piece of equipment. What does it do? I've heard fish disease is kind of one that I've heard. Is it prevent fish disease? Does it cure fish disease? Kind of a heavily debated topic on whether or not it cures some things or not. Cyanobacteria, algae, you know, dinos and stuff like that. I've heard the conversation around that also, but honestly, never personally put one on one of my own systems. It's a big cost, and I just don't really know much about it. I guess just didn't know much about it.
This is my experience with reading about UV sterilizers in the beginning. Somebody says, should I use UV sterilizers? And it's bam, bam, hit them down. Like, I mean, like just make sure that like nobody ever talks about it again. I mean, it's really, really terrible. There's like really no open mind to the whole thing and having an actual conversation about it, what it does and what it doesn't do.
Right.
It's just really, really opinionated. I would call it one of the most hot topics possible, and it's totally, totally uncomfortable for most people to even talk about it because a dozen people will jump in and say it's just total garbage.
Yeah, I wonder why that is, whether it's like cost of the thing, because some of these things could be, there's different scales of cost on the UV sterilizer depending on which ones you're looking at. I wonder if it's just the unknown of what it does, because it's not like an algae treatment, I guess, where like fluconazole, for instance. I know I can put that in the tank and visibly see results. Like, can I get the same from a UV sterilizer? Maybe there's an unknown. That's why it's so heavily debated. I don't know.
I'd say there's a few different reasons why it's heavily debated. Because most of the stuff that's sold to the industry is a toy. It is not designed to work. It's designed to sell stuff. So, like, it's like another filter for the tank, you know. So, there's a reason it doesn't work. So that's part of the reason. They also need to be installed in a very specific manner to have any type of function at all.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the time, they're not designed or installed in that manner. Also, there are some articles out there by some, very intelligent scientists and biologists out there that say they have pretty limited value in a closed loop system like this. So there's also people that will say the exact opposite,
Complete opposite.
And a complete opposite.
Yeah,
And so one of those things is, you know, if you go looking for people to agree with you, you will find them. In every case. So if you choose your news source based on what they tell you instead of the credibility and go into it with an open mind, you'll probably get what you're looking for. Right?
Okay, all
right. So let's just hit a couple of these questions real quick, man, before we move on.
Yeah, this first one that came in from Omar was awesome. It's like, brand new system. When's the best time to turn on your sterilizer? Should you wait till after the cycle? Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, why wouldn't you wait till after the cycle? When I'm thinking about the cycle process, I'm thinking bacteria, and when I'm thinking about UV sterilizer, I'm thinking about neutralizing bacteria, sterilizing bacteria, and those two seem like they shouldn't be together. But
I'm gonna go the other opposite all the way, right? And this is like goes against everything that you've ever been told, which is don't run your UV sterilizer while you're cycling your tank. And the reality is you know, when I wouldn't do it like run it right after I dumped some Dr. Tim's or some microbacter or whatever in there.
Free floating.
Yeah, those are all free floating in the water, and you don't want to sterilize those guys. But short of that conversation, if I run my UV sterilizer, will it cause the cycle to be longer? I don't know, maybe a little bit. But is that my priority? The shortest possible cycle known to man? It was with my first tank.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, this one, no. You know, like my tank is avoid all of the issues that people run into on their first tanks. And this will help me do that. So, you know, there's all kinds of new issues with tanks, like cyano and dinos and all kinds of algae issues and stuff. It won't solve all of them, but it will reduce them. And the reality is most of those bacteria that is going to cycle your tank live on a surface of something. They're not living free floating in the water where they're going to get sterilized.
Yeah.
They're populating the surface of the rock, sand, and glass, or biomedia, your ceramic medias like the
marine piers and the export blocks,
Yeah, so they are on the surface of those things. They're not swimming around the water, so it's not going to impact it the same way you think.
Yeah, and I think the same holds true when people, because I've heard a lot about, well, if I hook up a UV sterilizer, then does it kill my pod population, and my copepods, my amphipods, my microfauna? But in the same breath, that's kind of where they live too. They're all in those structures and substrates and things like that.
Two things. One, you're going to need really high-powered one for that to happen, and really long contact time for that to happen. Because, I mean, the contact time already for bacteria and protozoa and stuff is pretty darn long, but a copepod or amphipod is like huge, man. So,
so the bigger the organism, the longer the contact you would need to sterilize it.
I mean, as a rough guideline.
Right.
So, like, there is probably not going to happen to the degree that you want. Will it reduce some of those things? Probably. But it'll also help me eliminate the other things that I don't want in my tank. So, you know, and we're going to get to what exactly eliminates in a second, man. But, you know, let's just go into that right now, actually.
Okay.
So the first thing is, will it kill fish parasites like ick and all that kind of stuff and keep your tank free of ick? Give me your opinion.
Okay, so if I were to set up a UV sterilizer right off the bat and then never experienced like fish disease, bacterial, Bruchinellas, you know, maybe ick or maybe some other things, then I would say, you know, in a combination of like my fish choices and feeding habits and care and stuff, my UV sterilizer probably had something to do with that, and I'll defend it. Like, I'm gonna say, my UV sterilizer did that. But if I hook up a UV sterilizer afterwards as a treatment, and then find that it really didn't help cure, that was my only approach to the cure, and it didn't do anything, and then I'm gonna start bashing UV sterilizers and be like, it doesn't work for anything. Fish disease, no, it doesn't work. But I think preventative is probably where the conversation revolves around there. More so.
This is definitely one of those things. Ounce of cure worth a pound of, or ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. It will not stop an outbreak. You got ick, and if your knee jerk is to go and get a UV sterilizer to prevent the parasite that lives on the fish and not in the water, well, get ready to be disappointed. It ain't gonna do, I would call it do nothing. Zero value at all. Don't go do it for that reason. The only reason that you might do it that way is, you know what, this is gonna be part of my preventative strategy for the future. And the reality is there's all kinds of ways to quarantine your fish, and you may be good at it, but you're probably not. I'm speaking of 80% of you out there, the 20% that's awesome at it,
I'm not
high five.
good at it.
Yeah. And so for all of you that don't do it perfectly, this is part of a preventative strategy so you don't get there, have the same problem. Now, here's where the real debate is in a closed loop system where the UV definitely cannot sterilize all the water, because all the water does not go through that system every day. Just, a lot of it goes through it many times a day. Like 99.9% of it has probably gone through it multiple times a day.
Okay.
But 1% of that water somewhere in the tank, and the parasites live on some surface, or they live on the fish. The stuff that's on the fish is not going through there. So the big question is will drastically reducing the population of ick prevent an ick outbreak in the future, or velvet or brook or any of those things. And there isn't a 100% right or wrong answer to that. And if anybody says they know that for absolute sure, I'm not going to listen to them, because nobody knows anything for absolute sure. So if they leave a window of this is why I believe this and some supporting evidence to that, then man, I'm gonna listen all day long.
Okay.
But if it's no, never, man, I'll never ever we're gonna do anything, I'm not gonna listen to that, man, because I don't believe it.
Right.
And the other part of the reason I'm not gonna believe it is I often say when people ask how do you quarantine your fish and how do you treat fish for illness and stuff, don't listen to me, because I've done it dozens of times.
Yeah.
Go to the guy that works at a fish store who's done it thousands of times successfully.
Their daily job.
Daily
That's all
job
they
is
do.
treat and help fish live.
That's the one I want to talk
If they
to.
don't, inventory dies, they go out of business.
Yeah,
right?
true.
These are people are successful at this. And so what I will tell you is that like almost every wholesale fish, where especially in the systems that actually care about the fish, that it's cost efficient to do so, have UV sterilizers on them. Aquaculture facilities, fresh and saltwater, have them. All kinds of zoos and universities I've seen
that's the big
run
one
them.
for me, yeah.
Like the giant aquarium at the Mega Mall here, or
Yeah.
Mall of America as we call it. And that they run them on there, man. So like almost everywhere I've ever been where keeping the fish alive is what is the difference between profitability and going out of business, uses UV sterilizers.
Yeah, true.
So the people that do this for a business is tend to, and they've tried it all and implemented it and get past the science into, oh, I've done it both ways, and this one consistently produces results for me. That's good enough for me. It's definitely better than listening to a bunch of random people that read an article one day.
Yeah.
And I've been one of those people reading the article one day and I'd swallow it whole, especially if it happens to be something I believe in, because I'm human too. But like we just got to be keep our minds open to the things that are successful or not. So I will tell you this. I do not think, and I know this for a fact, that putting the UV sterilizer will not solve your problem with the current outbreak. If you do that, just expect all the fish to die. It may be part of what will stop the problems in the later on.
Yeah.
But better yet, it's what you put on there from day one to help prevent the issue. And so the thing is $300. Do you put it on day one or not is the big question, right?
Yeah, I mean, if in the case of the 750 XXL, we didn't even add fish until like month 2 or 3 anyway. We didn't even have, I mean, we have used the sterilizer for like cloudy water and things like that. But we also sourced our fish. I don't know, because it's kind of like, do you source your fish from somebody like Elliot at Marine Collectors who does all that stuff for us, and then maybe I don't have to have a UV sterilizer, or do I even start it on my own and go get fish that may or may not have disease? Like, you probably, but if you combine all of those efforts together, selecting your fish in a place that already does this, plus couple it with UV, you're just doubling or increasing your chances that you're just not going to run into a problem down the road.
You're just increasing the chances, or
Yeah.
decreasing. So that's the big part here, is you're just increasing or decreasing the chances with this thing. So do not feel like anybody's like, oh man, I'm not taking care of my fish unless I go out and buy a UV sterilizer.
Yeah.
Do not feel that way. The only thing you can feel like is, you know what, I bought all the things that I want, and now I got $300 burning a hole in my pocket where I want to put it. And like, this is a hobby. You put gear on it.
Yep.
And so especially gear that helps protect the animals is probably the wisest investment. Also a wise investment that helps you protect your tank from all kinds of pest stuff that we'll get to in just a second. Like, if you don't run into pests in the tank, it makes it owning the tank a lot more enjoyable.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you that for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, so if you got $300, I would say I would try to incorporate it in the beginning, because plumbing it is actually a big pain in the butt. Getting a decent sized UV sterilizer incorporated into your system, and it does need to be big to work, is not the easiest thing to do. So I would try to do it from the beginning, but you can do it later if you want. So the second part of this thing is not, we get past the fish thing, which is debatable for sure.
Yeah.
This other part, I'm just not going to say is debatable at all. I've seen enough instances of it that I believe this wholeheartedly. as it helps solve bacterial issues in things like dianos, cyano, and cloudy water, and bacterial blooms.
Yeah.
There's no question that the UV sterilizer will help avoid some of those things. Again, it won't take the cyano that's already grown on a surface off the surface, but if you blow it off, it will help slow it down. The dinos, if you go and do different things like blackout periods and other implementations, it will stop it from re-spreading. It won't like be the solution, but like something with dinos, like you have to have like a multi-pronged attack at this. And there are enough people. I asked a question about it on the hashtag #BRStv group not too long ago. And there was just people after person after person after person said they solved their dino problem with a UV sterilizer. And like the dino problem doesn't just like poof usually. So if I put a UV sterilizer on there and it goes away, I feel pretty darn confident that this is related to the ultimate solution.
Yeah.
I can tell you also new tanks. New tanks, man.
Oh, especially new bare bottom tanks too. Yeah, it's, we found that in the case of the 750X XL firsthand, where we had the tank running, you know, everything was running pretty good. Had a few fish in there that were just kind of placement holder fish before we got our big fish in there, our big algae eaters and stuff. And when we increased the bio load, we also increased the bacterial load. Big cloudy bloom in the tank. So we just put a UV sterilizer hanging off the side and come back like the next day, the next weekend or something, or after the weekend, come back, clear tank.
Somewhere we're going to hopefully show you the tanks that are set up behind us in just a minute. We'll tell you about it. But yeah, so that was absolutely true. And I also saw the same thing in the tanks that were in my office with the ULMs, that all these bare bottoms, like bare bottoms were new to me. Like I always wanted sand, so I know like people taught bare bottoms, I never did it.
Right.
Now I see a lot of advantages to it, but like starting the tank brand new this way is definitely like way less stable than with sand in it. There is no question.
Yeah.
And you know the guys at WWC warned me about it and warned me. The first year it sucks, and then after that more stable than not having or with sand. But I just see bacterial blooms. The water's cloudy. Like you can see some cyano and other stuff that like shows up. And then you turn on the UV sterilizer, and there's no more bacterial bloom. It's just gone immediately. You won't deal with that. And so for me, like we didn't do that. Turn it on I think it was the SPS tank in there, and we didn't turn it on. And man, it was months, dude. I bet you 6 months of bacterial bloom, just cloudy, not so cloudy that like it's like not viewable, but like just water just looks murky, like a haze. Yeah. And so I just dealt with that for 6 months, and you know, $300 to not have to deal with that. I'll make it. That is, I just do it from the beginning. So if I'm going to start a bare bottom tank, I think I'm going to just start off with a UV sterilizer right off the bat. I might put it somewhere where I can remove it later and sell it. But in all honesty, if it's solving my problems today, I'm going to let it solve them later. And then the benefits for the fish is just ancillary. Yeah. You know, I'm just helping me avoid pests that like drive me nuts in the tank.
This is something I would have been interested to see. I kind of wish we did on the BRS 160 when removing the sand and things like that, and creating destabilizing events like where we saw after we removed the sand, here comes cyanobacteria all over the place and things like that. I'm just wonder if that would have helped prevent it in some kind of way.
Prevent it in the beginning? Yeah, absolutely. It would have been interesting. So we're going to see that here, actually. Yeah. Again, experiments coming up. Yeah, and so let's answer a couple of these questions, man, before we move on to that.
Cool. Retro reefs. If you're not using a flow meter, are you doing it wrong, or it's a statement, or you're doing it wrong? So there are very specific flow rates for protozoan levels, algae levels, bacterial levels, things like that. And like the protozoan level are way less than the algae level.
Yeah. So this is all about contact time. So how long does the bacteria or protozoa or whatever need to be, or algae need to be in the reactor for this thing to work? And how many times a day does it need to cycle for a given volume of water? Right? If you get either one of those things wrong, it's not going to work. Yeah. Right? I mean, you can fudge it a little bit, but like if you're not paying attention to that, expect it to be garbage.
So if the flow is too fast, you're just not enough contact time and it's not sterilizing anything. If it's too slow, then you're really not getting the water column or the entire water amount as much as you should to like solve a larger problem, right?
And so if you're using a flow meter, like he said, Retro Reefs, thanks. If you're saying that, then you probably need like an Apex or something, but like you don't actually need that.
No.
So we put one on here. We got a flow meter. I look at my phone and it'll tell me the exact flow rate. I can adjust it and whatnot. That's awesome. But really what you can do is just take a bucket of water and let it flow into a 1 gallon bucket of water, time how long it takes, and you can figure out how many gallons an hour that is.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Or how many gallons, how much water you get in a minute, and then multiply that by 60, and that's how much water it's doing. And it doesn't change that often. You just kind of change it, check it every couple months or whatnot. And
but it's close. It's close enough.
You probably just clean your pumps instead of checking it after you get it the first time, But yeah, it'll be close enough. But yeah, the point here is absolutely right. And so let me show you another one here. How long can you run a UV sterilizer? Forever.
Like 24/7.
Yeah, you run it. You have to run it all day long.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, I shouldn't say have to, but like I would never consider not running it all day long.
Yeah.
Like,
and then life of the tank, just constantly.
You can run it from the beginning to the end. And again, some people will say don't turn it on in the beginning. I would absolutely not turn it on in the beginning if you're going to dump some Dr. Tim's or some microbacter in there. But after that, let that seed and take care of the tank, I would absolutely run it from the beginning because I want to avoid all the problems that people have in the beginning, and this would be a partial component of that strategy to achieve that.
So when you were hooking up to your tank, what method would you prefer? So on the 160, we piped it into the manifold off of the return pump. Here behind us in these experiments, separate pumps.
So I would much prefer that the return pump went up through it to the tank and not through the off of the manifold, because we end up kind of recirculating water in the sump that way to some degree, right? Yeah. And that's part of the reason why we got one that's like 3 times as big as we needed for that purpose. Okay. But like what I much prefer though is for all the water that enters the sump to get sterilized and then goes back into the tank. And actually some of the best installs that we've actually seen is like this, where it's actually recirculating right in the tank, so the water goes through the sterilizers and pump right back in the tank. So, if you're really nerding out on this, you could probably just put a couple of holes in the back of the tank that is just for a
closed
UV
loop type UV.
I'm going to do it actually.
Yeah?
Now that I said it out loud,
Closed loop
UV
That's
on
pretty cool.
360. For those of you who don't know, I announced that I'm putting a 360 gallon tank in my house. BRS 360.
Ooh,
yeah, that'll be fun.
Oh, foreshadowing there.
So we're gonna put that. I like that idea, man. I really like the closed loop because this is one of the best installations I've seen of this, or implementation, is when you actually suck water out of the tank and goes right back in and the stuff doesn't get caught in a fuge or anywhere else. It's just water cycling right through the tank. So
cool.
We've got to call my tank guy, man. Reef Savvy's making my tank, by the way. And Chris Benner is making the stand. I got to call him and tell him I have one more hole.
The BRS 160. The BRS 360. Okay. All
right. Yeah. Awesome, man. Another question real quick.
This one's really interesting. Will UV kill the beneficial nutrients used by LPS and SPS?
So it could degrade some things, faster than they normally would. And some bulbs put off a little bit of ozone and stuff like that. I don't think to a degree, man, that the benefits outweigh the negatives here. Right. So there's a lot of theoretical negatives, like the copepod things, maybe that thing. It happens to a degree that would prevent your corals from being happy. Absolutely not. There's too many implementations of UV sterilizers that just never happened to. I just don't believe that would.
Some people's gut reaction is to blame the equipment that they don't understand, like maybe a UV sterilizer, and maybe it could be lights, could be flow, could be water parameters, could be all kinds of things.
So I will tell you that without fail, anytime something dies in the tank, it's the last thing you did.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So the reality is sometimes that's true, but more times than not, it's actually this tank isn't stable and super happy to begin with. So any change is actually the thing that pushed that organism over the edge, right? Yeah. So positive, negative, whatever it was, any change of the chemistry was a stressful event that just pushed it over the edge. So sometimes it's the last thing you did, but often that is that sends you down the wrong path. So
okay,
all right, let's get a couple more and then we'll move on.
Chip he has a question, I guess.
Okay.
He bought one from us just over a month ago. Thanks, Chip. And he's guessing his flow rate's too fast. What's a good way to install it? He has it online from the return in his sump.
All right.
So we kind of talked about that one a little bit, where Ryan's going to do the recirculating, the closed loop type system, but like the 160 has it installed just kind of in this manner on the manifold.
Yeah, but the manifold you can control.
And yeah, the biggest thing is that, like you said, he thinks it flows too fast. Find a way to measure the flow, and like you don't need the Neptune. If you have one, then just get a flow meter.
If you have a Neptune, get it, and a UV sterilizer.
Get one.
Go buy the flow meter immediately. It's too cheap to not do that.
Yeah. Well, and plus you could use the other ports for leak detection and stuff like that too.
Or get a good their auto top off and then get a flow meter.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like Ryan was talking about, fill up a bucket, like a 5-gallon bucket or a known volume type of container for 1 minute. Multiply that by 60, do the math, and then figure out the flow rate and try to get in those ranges for like the UV sterilizers. The UV sterilizer here, the range for algae, is like 380 to 700, so it's a decent window.
So one of those things though with that 380 to the 700 is actually kind of considering bulb life in that mix. So like 700 at maximum bulb life, 380 a year from now, right? Or 9 months towards the end of the bulb life. So you like to kind of get somewhere in the middle or even towards the end, but also got to consider the size of the tank and stuff that's rated for. So if you got a 100-gallon UV on a 50-gallon tank, you can probably go to the slower flow rates and get what you need. It'll probably perform better than if you went faster because you get more contact time and you still have the turnover rate.
Yeah.
So the thing I think he's actually getting at here, though, is that you hooked it up to your return pump. That means that I can't turn it down unless I'm going to turn down my the flow rate through my tank. And one of those things I'll just ask you to go look at is most people are telling you some kind of like 7 to 10 times turnover your tank, which kind of is from a era where we were putting calculating flow based off of the return partially.
Right.
That kind of era is like over since power heads are so easy to use now. I think a lot of people are like 3 times turnover. So one of the things that I do is just go look and see if you can turn down the flow rate or the turnover of your pump to match the UV sterilizer. If you can, go ahead. Remember, the only thing that we're doing through the sump is whatever filtration's in there. I just need to heat the water, filter the water, and even at 3 times, I'm probably filtering almost every bit of that water, many dozens of times a day.
Yeah. So if I set it to 2 times, 3 times turnover, and I find that my tank temperature is stable with my heater in the sump and my display is unstable, then that's plenty enough turnover because the filtration is going to be adequate enough.
Yep, the skimmer has many times. Again, this isn't like a single pass system,
right?
Where flow rate really matters. It's a closed loop, so you just get many passes at the same types of particulates that you're trying to remove and uneaten food and whatnot.
Yeah.
So not as big of an issue. But yeah, if that doesn't work, man, you might have to like plumb it off a little bit. And so manifold it off, put a T in there, and allow some of the water to go back to the tank. Without going through the sterilizer. But you absolutely have to pay attention to the flow rate through it or it won't work.
There you go.
All right.
Michael gave us a super chat, so let's
Michael,
talk to
thank
him.
you very
Thanks,
much.
Mike. And we're looking at any reason to run a UV on a nano like Nuvo 30.
So Nuvo 30 is not really a nano, 30-gallon tank, but yeah, and actually we have a 37-gallon tank over here. It's actually one of these things.
Yeah.
And part of what spurred this experiment here is we were running into some dinos in one of them.
That's right.
And we threw on a little innovative marine UV thing on it, and it was part of the solution, man. It was one of those things where you're like, I wonder if that's really gonna work. Boom, did.
Yeah. So on that one we did. So it's a kind of a combo of the two. Is we took a reactor, like a media reactor. We put a filter, like a sediment filter in there, so we can try to, like, if you're blowing the dinos and stuff off the rocks, why not capture it while it's free floating and get it out of there? But the output of that reactor goes through that innovative marine sterilizer, and now you're kind of like doing double duty.
Yeah, so the ones that are going into that little filter can't reproduce anymore. And I will tell you that we went on a microscope and actually confirmed that they were dinos. So we know we're talking about the real thing.
For sure.
Absolutely an advantage to do it on there. And actually, with a lot of those innovative marine and the E-series tanks from Red Sea, the all-in-one tanks, if you can incorporate something that they already kind of have a closed loop design in there, that you can just kind of put it in there. So I will tell you, I was actually surprised by this one because, you know, most of the time the small little UVs like don't really do a whole lot, and they're definitely not good enough for like fish parasite to what I would believe. But for this application, it works pretty good. And you know, you see a lot of things, like a lot of gimmicky stuff. And again, like we mentioned earlier, these UV sterilizers are usually sold like a toy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's like the turbo twister, right? Like, oh yeah, if you think about it, like, oh, it's gonna have more contact time because it's spinning around this bulb. But it turns out, man, that 100 gallons in and 100 gallons out is the same damn contact time. Doesn't matter if it's spinning or doing loop-de-loops or backflips inside there, man. It doesn't do anything. It's just a gimmick. So if you see gimmicks, expect people to lie to you and try to use gimmicks to sell you product.
Not to say that they're ineffective 100%. So
I just don't.
I wouldn't like if it says more, you're gonna get more, and it's a higher gallon rating because it has the twist in there. Probably not so much, but
I would just tell you gimmicks. I mean, so that the product may very well work, right? But for me, gimmicks that are easily so transparent that the average person can see through it means run, don't walk.
Okay.
Man. Go find somebody that else is like not willing to lie to you on the front of the box.
Yeah.
Right? Like and give you gimmicks as much as possible, man. So you know, maybe there's some, you know, valid reason as to twisting, but you know, I don't think there is, and it's certainly not due to contact time like some of them say. So you know, move on. But
I see a really good question sitting here in the middle. It's Shane. Are two smaller UVs same as a larger unit?
Oh, that is interesting.
The other one, Dave. He's got two questions
pull
in
it
there,
out.
but are two smaller UVs the same as a larger unit?
You haven't pulled it out yet, Dave. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Sorry
are
about
two
that.
state UVs the same as one larger unit? And do you know the answer to this
I
question?
don't know the answer, but
Yeah, so actually, that is one of the ways that Pantera now, used to be Emperor Aquatics.
Oh, they had the dual chamber.
They had dual chambers,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
so
yeah,
it would
yeah.
go in one, split out, and go out through two, right?
Okay.
And so absolutely that is a, you know, functional way to do it.
That makes
so
sense.
if you had two return lines per se, you could put it on both of them if you wanted to, instead of having one giant one.
so then you just so say one small one was rated for 100 gallons. If I put another one on there, now I'm at a 200 gallon capacity. Could I do that math?
Yeah,
Basically.
I mean, provided you're getting the right turnover on it,
Right.
and like there might be, you might want to ask the manufacturer a little bit on each one of these. But I've definitely seen many implementations where rather than getting a super strong bulb, which these bulbs only go up to a certain like 50 watts or 90 watt high output, and after that, man, they actually get into these really expensive options. So running multiple lamps ends up being, you know, sometimes a better option than getting into the super expensive options. All right. So, hey, we should keep answering questions here, but we're going to go over to the experiment that's right behind us.
Let's do it.
Right on. So, we got 3 of them.
I mean, you guys can see what's kind of going on here. There's UV sterilizers on 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks. 4 tanks,
No,
UV
6.
sterilizers. 6
Oh, well,
tanks.
there's 6 tanks in the experiment. 4 of them have sterilizers.
Oh, there you go. So what are we looking for here?
So, what I want to get past is, like, nobody's going to ever answer the answer to the fish thing, you know, in a way that ever stops the conversation. But, like, this seems to some stuff that, like, is, you know, maybe even more useful to the average reefer who's looking to not run into the same kind of issues over and over again, especially those who want to avoid the hardest years. You know, in the first 2 years of that tank, there's going to run through all kinds of deep stabilizing events. Let's try to avoid some of those things or make them easier to beat back in the beginning, right? And so what we're going to do is we got 6 tanks, and 2 of them down there have brand new rock in it. So this is rock that we just pulled off the shelf. You know, it's dry Marco Reef Saver rock, right? And we're going to run one of them at the protozoa rate. Right?
Okay, the slower rate.
Yeah, the slower. It's like
Super slow
6
rate.
times slower, like 50 gallons an hour, and the other
Super
one's
slow.
like 600 or 300.
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
Okay, so the super slow 50 gallons an hour, we're gonna run it, and then the other one we're gonna run at the 300 gallons an hour, which is 6 times faster.
The algae rate.
The protozoa one, like ick and velvet and all that kind of stuff, and then the other one, which is made for algae and bacterial issues, right?
Yep.
And we're gonna get pure play, just visual observation, right? So does this thing, you know, end up with cyano? Does it end up with dinos? Guess what? We're gonna go today, and I'm gonna go scoop some dinos and some cyano and other things out of tanks around here. And I'm gonna make a little slurry, and I'm gonna dose it to the tank.
Wow.
Right? So we're gonna make sure that those things are present in the tank and then see if they populate the surface and then cause problems, right?
Wow, yeah.
All right.
That's exciting.
So the ones that are right behind me, these ones are actually tanks, rock that has been sitting in that container probably for 2 years.
Okay.
So there's a live skimmer testing system that's over here. It's got tons of frags in it, coral frags, like, I don't know, it's like a 8-foot by 4-foot tank over there, and then it has a whole ton of rock in it. So we took rock out of that guy right there. So this is well cycled rock that should be able to fight off other, parasitic type bacteria, and doing the same thing. One of them is at like 50 gallons an hour, the other one's like 300, the protozoa rate, and then the algae and bacteria rate. And then over here, we have the exact 2 more tanks over here, and this one's got new rock in it, and one of them's got old rock in it, but neither one of them have UV in it. So, like, we're going to see repeatable results amongst a variety of different things, with new rock, old rock, running the UV at different rates.
Yeah.
And we're going to share with you our journey. So I can tell you already that, like, anecdotally, I've seen all these things happen in the 60 tanks that are running here over and over again.
Okay.
Are we going to run into bacterial blooms and stuff in these bare bottom tanks? We'll get answers to those questions, and then we'll be able to share them visually with you guys. Is it 100% peer-reviewed science? No. But I'm not attempting to do that either. What we're just trying to do is do the best of our ability, is do an actual experiments and then share with you the results of them, and just continue the conversation as we learn more and more about what we're doing, adding data points into the conversation, but more importantly, like data points that are actually transparent and shared, good results, bad results, you get to see, right? And then repeat them, turn them off, start over, do it again, see what happens.
I mean, so a lot of the information that we get anyway on the forums and on the groups and all this other stuff is all anecdotal, but it's sort of anecdotal in the way that it's one person and maybe 1 or 2 tanks in their house, and then you get enough people with their one tank where they've experienced this and this. Like, not everybody gets a chance to set up 6 tanks and do the exact same thing in each 6 tanks. So from a little more scientific than maybe polling like 6 or 7 different people.
Well, so polling people and talk about it afterward means I shared the results I got, right? Which is totally different than saying, this is how we're going to approach this problem. We're going to show the results, good or bad, right? Totally different thing.
Yeah.
Because most people will share you the results afterward, but the people that failed, they're not around to tell you. Like, they're not around, so you don't get to see that there's tons and tons of chunks of the conversation that are just completely missing if you just go ask afterward. However, if you take a half dozen tanks, and then follow the progress of each of them, and if you see repeatable results, you can build a compelling story that is, hey man, we watched this from the beginning, there's accountability to the fact that we're going to show it to you regardless of what we see.
So you had mentioned, I kind of want to bring this up because I'm looking at the plumbing pipe job on this thing, and you had mentioned that a lot of people installed them incorrectly, or they're sometimes, a lot of times they're installed incorrectly. So is it a vertical thing, horizontal thing type thing we're talking about?
Everything about these things is installed incorrectly all the time.
Okay.
Right? It's because they're big. So by the way, I mean, this thing is the smallest one that we sell, and it's 18 inches long.
It's tall, yeah.
It's big. It's hard to fit underneath a cabinet and whatnot, but it needs to be big to work.
Yeah.
And it has to be installed in a very specific manner. So you don't want it to be full of air. So if you feed water like from your overflow down bubbles will get in there, and even if it doesn't get bubbles, it may trap just air in there for half of it, right? It's trickled down. You need to feed it from the bottom to make sure that it's always full of water. Are there like some really unique scenarios where you could do it the other way? Probably, but are they failable? Almost certainly. The other thing you can do is mount it horizontally and pump water in, and then it will come back out. In that case, air doesn't get trapped in there as well.
Right.
You probably want, if you could, like a tiny little slope to one end to the other.
Keep that air bubble. There's going to be a pocket. Yeah.
So get as much of the air out of there as humanly possible. There's actually like a visual window on the end where you can actually see a lot of that. So super important that it's mounted in a manner that doesn't get air in it.
Right. Super
important that you are matched it to your tank. So if the sterilizer doesn't give you very distinct flow rates that it's supposed to be designed to be used with, and a very distinct size tank, don't use it because they don't know, and if they don't know, you won't know either. They have to be able to tell you how to use the product to be successful, and that's the other part of this. Personally, I would just skip the hobby toy ones, and I would buy the ones that the aquaculture, business uses. That's the Pentair one. So for those of you who don't know, that's like a big aquaculture business. And so actually, they're into water.
They're into
like
all kinds
every
of water.
element of water globally.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely use one that is designed to use in a business environment where success means money, because that means people are proving that it actually works.
Cool.
So those are some of the biggest things, man. Flow rate and getting the size right,
Getting the air out.
and getting the air out of it is probably the biggest things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we got tons of questions
Tons of
here.
questions. Let's
So
start blowing
we
through
might
them.
as well just shoot through them. I have a 90-gallon tank. How big do I need a UV? I think this 18-watt. I just go on.
Yeah, that one's rated for 100, I think. So yeah.
So I just go onto the website, and all of the Pentair ones have a very distinct size that they're rated for. I would believe it, and I would not feel the need to get one that's bigger than it says.
Right.
Could you get one bigger? Yes, and it won't probably harm anything. So it probably won't be a bad maneuver to get big, but you don't feel the need to.
Right.
These things again are not a toy like a skimmer or whatnot that's rated for some mysterious amount of gallons. These things are designed for a very specific purpose, and they know the turnover that's required to do it in that size range. So I would feel comfortable getting the right size for the right job.
Cool. Are there any LED versions out there? UV LED versions like light bar?
So my understanding, and this is a very limited understanding, so I haven't seen one, and I think it's because real UV LEDs are really expensive and
Below 380, below 400 nanometers.
Yeah, in the range that they use for this thing, which
yeah.
I think is maybe even all the way down to like 320.
Yeah.
I think they're really expensive, and I haven't seen one in our market, and given the availability of UV sterilizers and LEDs, I can't imagine why they wouldn't have transferred here yet. So I mean, even with you said you call it UV on your lights, but for the most part, it's actually like violet.
Yeah.
It's near UV is what it is. So getting into real ultraviolet light, I think it's just probably cost prohibitive in many cases, especially the nature of the it's like a fluorescent tube looking shape of a light, and so you're getting that contact time over the full length of this
360
bulb. Getting the same kind of effect out of LEDs is probably just not cost.
They're
cost
so
productive.
directional. Yeah, you'd have to put them all over the same type of circle. They're cylinder types,
and you'd have to put in a heat solution. They probably generate a lot of heat down at that energy wave length. So I haven't seen one. So will you see one? I think those are some of the challenges.
Cool.
All right. Hey, by the way, what's coming up at the end? I mean, we're gonna hold it.
Oh yeah, don't forget.
I'm gonna call it already in an hour. So we got 13 or 17 minutes. We're giving away that $500.
We still got $500 to give away.
All right.
How often do you change the bulb, and how do you know if your bulb needs to be changed?
I think it's
Fair
every
question.
9 months.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean they have again explicit instructions on flow rates and sizes and bulb changes too.
So at one point, the flow rate, they actually rated the thing out of the box at 50% bulb life.
Okay.
And so that in the beginning, you'd actually be over that. I'd have to check now and see whether or not that's still the case, or is it just within that range. But that flow range that you have in there, I believe, is related to bulb life. So the lower end just kind of assumes the bulb is old, and the high end assumes new. But in that case, I would always assume it's old because it's going to get old, and you want it to work. So, all right, man. How many watts does a UV sterilizer need to be effective? All right, so there's actually like some kind of equation for this, and I don't know it offhand, but it's
our smallest one is 18 watts, right?
Yeah.
And then the biggest one is like 30, 40
There's
watts.
a measurement of the UV that comes off of the thing versus contact time for the organism versus whatever. I don't know it, but I would just expect the manufacturer to have done that math for you, and if they haven't done for you, then they probably don't know.
There you go.
So then they're probably selling a toy instead of an actual solution. All right. Okay, so I would nail a couple of these. So we had what flow rate would you recommend? Again, I'm just going the one on the box.
Yep.
You know, so it designed this thing to achieve a very specific purpose. So the thing will actually say on there how long you should do it. And if yours doesn't, then I'd go to another one that's a similar wattage and size and just steal it from a company that actually did give you that information.
Yeah. Reef Hacks was wondering what brand we're recommending for UV and why. Right now, it's the Pentair stuff.
Yep.
Because that's what they do. This is what they do. Like water treatment, water UV sterilization on probably way bigger applications than what we use it for in the aquarium hobby. So
it used to be called Emperor Aquatics, and the reason that I picked it up to begin with is because there was a family here that used it in their koi ponds.
Oh, yeah.
And so by koi ponds, I mean, it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. These kids were homeschooled, and they were like 14 years old, man, and their parents made them start their own business. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so what they did is they built these giant cement indoor ponds. I mean, there must have been each one of them. I can't imagine how many thousands of gallons each one. They were all filled with koi, and them and their kids went to Japan, and they'd bring back all of these koi, thousands of them, right here in Minnesota, and they were the distributor for Emperor Aquatics. And so that was like my first encounter. They're part of the local reefing club as well. And I'm like, well, I want one of those. Right, and the more research I did, it's like, this is what all of, like it was like, they used to have a whole list, like, Georgia University and like, there's so many different places that use this thing. So like, well, I mean, if I'm going to use it, I'm going to use the one that, like
the large scale aquariums.
Zoos and scientists and everything you're using. So ultimately though, you do the research, and then Pentair, like probably the leader in like almost every water filtration known to man, actually bought them, and now it's now a Pentair UV filter. So sterilizer. So I would absolutely use the Pentair ones. Are there ones out there that are just as good? Probably. Yeah. I think Aqua Ultraviolet or something makes one. It's like a white version, pretty similar. It probably works as well, but it's a
lot of smaller manufacturer type ones too, like these innovative marine ones for small tanks and stuff that seem to be effective.
I was surprised,
what we've experienced.
The Innovative Marine one absolutely worked on the 37 gallon, or I guess it's 45 gallons total water volume of the E170 Red Sea tank. So, absolutely.
Cool.
All right, what else we got?
If water is crystal clear even without socks or mesh, would you advise to still use UV?
I mean, so...
it's different types of filtration we're talking, or it's different types of things that we're talking about here, like the stuff that mesh and filter socks, the particulates that pulls out, the detritus, that type of versus maybe that's bacterial, which a filter sock isn't going to remove.
So it's just another filter on the tank, right? And so like every single filter, like I was researching one of the scripts yesterday, like, do you need a protein skimmer? The answer is no, you don't. Right, you do not need a protein skimmer to have a successful reef tank, and I can give you dozens and dozens of examples, including the 293 in the showroom of WWC. Doesn't have one, right? So, like, you don't need one. Do most people run one? Yep. It's because it has advantages. So the advantages here, man, like, am I going to be able to keep my water clean? Am I going to keep it, reduce the chances of, fish getting disease, especially if I don't have other really solid tactics? Am I going to prevent issues like cyano and dinos, or help treat them before they get out of control? Yeah, if you don't have any of those issues and you don't have $300 burning a hole in your pocket, then skip it, man. Like, don't do it. If you are a gear junkie and you want to prevent yourself from those things, then get one. But don't feel like compelled, like somebody's twisting your arm. If you don't have one, you're a bad pet owner. And part of the thing is like, if I said this to you earlier, like if I had two $20 clownfish and that was all going to my tank, would I buy a $300 filter for it?
No, personally,
probably not, right? If it's now year 15 and I have the same clownfish that I had from my first tank, his name is Scotty and he's part of my family. All right, man, like that was a $20 fish, but like he's now a pet and part of my family, and he could live till 30.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to transfer him to a larger tank, or if I'm going to add other fish to this thing, now is it worth $300?
For 30 years?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, like I mean, I've had cats and dogs that cost 10 times that much. You know,
For
so
sure.
like,
Yeah.
you know, so like, I don't know, man. It's just up to you and your own individual thing, man. Don't let anybody tell you right or wrong. Just kind of evaluate for yourself, you know, the things that you care about and your own budget, size of tank, and your own pets. Make a decision that fits yours. In this instance, you won't make the wrong one. You know, you'll make the right one just because you evaluate it for yourself rather than listen to other people. All right. Instead of you having a UV bulb contained in a tube, would it be viable to place UV in a compartment and have the water pass through this similar flow?
So like
possibly,
one of the chambers of the refugium.
Possibly, but the thing about the tube is you can ensure that it's within range of the bulb, right? So, you know, this guy is a certain size, you know, it's like, you know, 3-inch tube for a purpose, so that's within 1.5 inches of the bulb at all times, right? And so, like, for instance, we have on the 160 like a stubbier guy, and it's a high output bulb, which allows it to go farther, and because of that, it's like a 5.5-inch tube or something, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, you could just like essentially put a bulb in there that was waterproof, and it would maybe do something, but what I would say is don't do that. You're wasting your money. I would go and just get the right solution or the right tool for the right job.
10 minutes before we close her up and draw a $500 winner.
All right, man. I kind of like the suspense of giving this stuff away at the
Yeah,
end.
I know.
Yeah,
I
change
know
it
his
up a little
name.
bit. Oh, do you? I don't even know the name yet. All right. A UV will cure bacterial infection on your acros. So it won't kill anything on
the
anything.
surface.
So
Right.
anything that is living currently on something, it will not help with that.
Nah.
Will it help with the spread of that? Possibly.
Good.
Will it have prevented that from the beginning? Possibly, right?
Okay.
So if there was just some kind of small source of this thing to begin with, like would it absolutely, or would it reduce the chances of spreading? And the word reduce is I'm super comfortable saying. To what degree really depends on the proximity to the corals, your system design, what it is, and all this other stuff, right? So like reduce, I will absolutely say treat, almost no chance at all.
Okay.
All right, shoot another one.
Will UV light that goes in the sump? Will a UV light that goes in the sump work? I think sort of along the same lines. Maybe this is like a submersible.
Well, if
type
you were
of UV?
recirculating through the sump, no. So the answer
Like
is
if I set it in the sump and it went, and I was feeding from the bottom, filling it back up, and just letting it pour back in.
Yep. And I will tell you this, you know, UV is like one of those less understood things, and you learn more about everything. And so back in the day when we set up the 160 in like 2014 or 15 or whatever, we decided to run it off the manifold, and it kind of like comes out the return pump and goes through.
All the way back to the
I
sump.
think we bypassed, you know, the way these things are supposed to work, and because of that, in some cases, it didn't get as good a results as it could have. Now, again, we intentionally made it, you know, 3 times stronger. Like that thing is rated for like 450 gallons or something, or at least 350, and this thing's only 160 gallons. So, in our thought process is like, well, we have accounted for that. But I think better than trying to account for that is just do it right from the beginning. So if I had to do it over again, I would have probably 2 return pumps, and one of them would be set for the right amount, and it would recirculate through the tank.
Okay. Now, you know, over on YouTube, though, you haven't pulled over yet, Dave. At the top, Ryan had a good point here.
Ryan Thompson.
He says UV bulbs will possibly, I can't say will for sure, but destroy certain plastics and acrylic, and may also be like a hazard to your eyes. So
Yeah.
this whole, you know, stick it in just a bulb inside of the thing, or in your baffles or something like that in your sump, definitely from a safety standpoint.
Thank you, Ryan. And I'm just going to stop this conversation right in the middle of it.
There you go.
Like, for all the ways of just sticking a bulb in your sump, stop it. Don't do it.
There you go.
You're not doing it the way that it's designed to be done. Do it the way it's designed to be done, or don't do it all.
There you go.
Like this is a filter that will not work if it's improperly done. You
Yeah.
can do it improperly installed skimmer, and it will still skim to some degree.
Yeah.
Every other improperly done filter sock that bypasses a little bit, it'll
still
still
work.
do some. This thing will have no use almost if you do it poorly. So like either do it right or don't do it at all. And that is part of the equation of getting past the does it work or doesn't work thing is do it right, and you'll have much higher success. If you do it wrong, assume failure.
Thanks,
and
Ryan.
actually waste of time.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Jaden wants to know how he enters the raffle.
Oh, hey, all you gotta do is become a preferred reefer, and at the end this time, man, we're gonna have a little link for it. I'll point at it or something,
Yeah.
and it won't be here, but it will be here later. You can go to anywhere on the website and just become a preferred reefer, and at that case, after you do that, all you need to do is add $500 worth of stuff to your wish list, or buy something. In either case, we refund one of those guys every week. So there you go.
Kelly wants to know what pump we're using to power these UV sterilizers to achieve effective flow rates.
So I think it's a CJ 5.0.
Yeah, they got changed to CJ 5.0s mainly because of the head pressure height of going down, coming out and down and back through, fill all the way back up. It's a pretty big drop, probably about like 3 feet or so from out of the pump and back. So there's on the slower flow rate one, it's CJ 3.5s. Because for the protozoan level, we were able to reach the effective flow rate with a smaller pump, but larger pump for the higher.
So we use the CJ pumps all the time. Just that AC pumps like this are super, super reliable. That the tolerances on them are much looser than DC pumps. At home, made DC pumps are like the quietest thing known to man. But like in this case, AC pumps, I don't hear them or anything. There's no noise, but like that's the big advantage. Other than that, most people just need to turn them on to a certain flow rate. And in this case, we're just going to adjust them with a gate valve on the top there, and then we'll look on our apex, and it'll tell us the exact flow rate because we put the flow meter on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Couple more.
All right, a couple more. This is like turned out perfect. We got 3 minutes left and 3 questions.
Two questions. Right. We just answered Kelly's.
2 questions. Okay, what's the next one? Is UV compatible with a refugium? So absolutely. So the refugium is like 2 things, right? One is microfauna, and the other one is pulling out like nutrients and whatnot.
Right.
There's no reason you can't use a UV with Chaetomorpha or really any other type of refugium that way.
Yeah.
In terms of will it, remove some of the microfauna that goes from the tank, from the sump back to the tank? The answer is some it will, all it won't. And like the goal, I've seen people they get the filter sock and they're like trying to save every
copepod. Yeah.
Like, dude, there's so many more in the tank than you could ever imagine.
Take a look at night.
Yeah. So if you're worried about saving every last life in the tank, meaning every copepod, man, I don't know how you're gonna sleep at night because there's tons of them dying every day. Fish are eating them all day long.
Yeah.
So to some degree, but that wouldn't prevent me from solving other issues because it won't be the reason I'm not successful with my future.
Cool.
All right, last one. All right.
Is the bottom line here? It's worth having a UV on any tank if it's in the budget. Is that the bottom line?
Man, solid, dude. I really
like it out.
I just like that's a perfect
Matthew.
way to end it. Yeah,
Well
Matthew, man, thank you very much. So yeah, the answer is for me, for sure. I'm going to talk about myself, like my own tanks, not advice for anybody else. So I'm going to do a lot of bare bottoms from here on out. There's a whole bunch of other reasons I'll tell you about that, and there's no scenario where I'm not going to put a UV on it because I want to solve tons and tons of those problems, and I just don't want to see them in my house while they're happening. Right. And so the fact that it's beneficial to the fish and whether or not it will help me prevent other issues down the line, all the way. It's
worth
just
the investment.
Another filter on the tank that has a really low failure rate, meaning there's not a lot that will happen from adding this piece of technology to the tank if it doesn't work right. Yeah. There's stuff that you can put on your tank like ozone or whatnot that if it goes bad, it goes really bad. Yeah. In this case, man, the bulb is, runs out of juice. I don't know.
Just replace it.
Only thing would be, I guess, it leaks or something. But really low likelihood of being negative for the tank. Definitely has, I've seen with my own eyes in enough instances now to say that it has a definite positive to the tank. So as long as I had $300 or whatever it costs to implement it, I would absolutely do it. I'd personally do it in the beginning during the system design phase, which is my favorite part of the whole thing, rather than try to incorporate it later. If you do want to do it later and you don't have the $300 now, think about the plumbing for it at least now. Hey, maybe I'll do this later date. Right. Maybe I should put a little port off the side here where this would, happen, so that you're not redesigning your system at a later date.
Hey, and before we get to we're about to talk about this $500 winner here. But before we get to that, speaking of designing and the plumbing, I got to give a shout out to Aaron.
Oh, yeah, Aaron.
Got to give a shout out to Aaron on this. Like, when you guys see the video, the first video on this one, and you see, I mean, you can kind of see how gorgeous this is in Neptune orange, but those brackets are printed himself, and they are solid and better. The best solution to mounting a UV sterilizer I've seen.
Yeah, mounting it is a pain in the butt. So like they have some of these clamp things, but they're like $80 a piece.
Oh yeah, they're
super
crazy.
expensive. So this is super nice. Also, if you guys run RO tube around your house, I wish he was in here somewhere. Aaron actually also does these little RO clips that we have on our website that you can screw in and run really straight, neat lines with your RO tubing.
We're going to showcase them one day.
Yeah,
we're going to showcase them.
All right, drum roll please here. All right, we got Eric Reed from Apaloca, Florida for $485.83. And if you want to win right now, it won't show up, but at some point right here, right there, somewhere, little box is going to show up with Dave. He's going to put it in there to become a preferred reefer.
Yeah.
We'll probably throw up like a fun video too or something like that.
Cool.
But he won PM2 salinity module, Neptune, FMK flow monitoring kit. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
cool. Interesting. Lab, I mean, did you just pull this one out because of that thing?
Just happened,
Sure
random.
seems like that. Lab grade conductivity salinity probe for Neptune systems. Neomarine salt from Brightwell Aquatics. Sweet. I gotta tell you, I've seen that thing pop up way more often, man. That thing really came in as like a sweet spot of like between the super expensive clean and the affordable clean.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think they're pretty happy probably being there. And the reverse osmosis membrane clips. You got a few of those. What an oddball thing for that.
Cool.
All right, awesome, man. Congratulations. If you want to win, become a preferred reefer, hit that button that shows up somewhere around here.
That one.
And we'll see you next week.
All right, take care, guys.